Hi, this is Anil from Learning Lad and welcome to another video on C programming language. Now in this video we will see how we can write a C program to print this pyramid pattern. Now here you guys can see I have used the character star in this pattern. You can use any character that you wish and you can print this pyramid pattern. Now let's take a look at this pattern. This pattern is in pyramid shape and here I have divided this pattern in terms of rows and columns. Now these are the rows from up to down. So this is the first row, this is the second row, third row, fourth row and fifth row, and similarly we have the columns here. So first column, second column, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth and 9 columns are present in this pattern. Now if you look at this image, then the number of rows present in this pattern is 5. So the total number of rows is 5. Now here when we try to print this pattern, we will print this pattern row by row. So first we will print the first row and then the second row, then the third row, then the fourth row and then the fifth row. If you look at this first row, then we have 4 spaces, and if you look at the second row, then we have 3 spaces. And then if you look at the third row, then we have 2 spaces. In the fourth row, we have 1 space, and in the fifth row, we have 0 space. So the first thing that we do here is, let's take a look at how we can calculate the spaces that we have to print for a particular row. So here, by looking at this, we can say that the number of spaces that we have to print for a row is equal to total number of rows minus row number. So now if you look at this here, then the total number of rows present in this pattern, in this image, is 5. And for the first row, the row number is 1. So we need to print 4 spaces, and you guys can see we need to print 4 spaces here. Similarly, if you apply this logic for this third row, then the total number of rows present in this pattern is 5 and the row number is 3. So the space that we have to print is 2. So now we know how we can calculate the spaces that we have to print for a row. So we can do that by using this formula, that is total number of rows minus row number will give us the number of spaces that we have to print for a row. Okay. Now we have seen how we can calculate the spaces for the rows. Now let's talk about how we can calculate the number of stars that we have to print for each row. Now if you look at this pattern here, then in the first row we have 1 star, and in the second row we have 3 stars, and in the third row we have 5 stars, and in the fourth row we have 7 stars, and in the fifth row we have 9 stars. Now here for the example purpose, I'm using the character star here in this pattern. You can use any character for printing this pattern. So now if you look at the number of stars present in each row, then we can form a formula here, and that is the number of stars that we have to print for a particular row is equal to 2 multiplied by the row number minus 1. Here let's apply this formula to this pattern. Now let's take a look at the first row. In the first row, the row number is 1. So if you apply this formula, then it will be 2 multiplied by row number, which is 1, minus 1. It will be 1. So in the first row, we have to print 1 star. Now let's take a look at the fourth row. So now if we apply the same formula here, 2 multiplied by 4 minus 1. So it will be 7. 8 minus 1, 7. So in the fourth row, we have to print 7 stars. So now we know how to calculate the number of spaces that we have to print for a particular row, and also we know how to calculate the number of stars that we have to print for a particular row. So now let's see how we can write a simple C program by using these two formulas, and let's print this pattern. Okay, Now let's see how we can write the C program to print this pattern. So now in this video what we are going to do is, we are going to ask the user about for how many rows he wants us to print the pattern, and whatever the value user is going to enter, according to that value we will print the pattern. So the first thing that we do here is we will declare some of the variables that we need. So the first variable that we need is for storing the user input, for how many rows he wants to print the pattern. So I will create a variable and I will call it as total row num, and in this variable we will store the user input, and then we will be using a for loop for printing the rows, and for that particular for loop we will use a loop counter variable, and I'm gonna declare that here. I will call it as row, and then for every row we need to print some spaces. So for that purpose I will declare a variable called space, and then in every row we have to print the star or any other character that you want to print. So I will call it as symbol. Here in this video I'll be printing star. You can print any other symbol. So now the next thing that we do is we will ask the user about for how many rows he wants to print the pattern. So we will use a printf function and we will display the message. The message will be enter the number of rows, and then we will read the input using this scanf function, and we will store that in this total row num variable. Okay, so now we know for how many rows we want to print the pattern. So the next thing that we do is we print this pattern row by row. So we use a for loop because we are going to be printing multiple rows. We will use the row variable and we will initialize that with a value of 1, and the condition will be the number of rows that we want to print is stored in this total row num variable, which is the value entered by the user. So the condition will be row less than or equal to total row num, and after that we will increment the value of this row variable. Okay, now here for every row what we're going to do is we will print the space, and then after printing the number of spaces we will print the symbol, and after printing one row we will add a new line so that the next row printed will be in the new line, and that's why we will use this printf function and we will add a new line here. Okay, now here what we have to do is we have to print the spaces, and then we have to print these symbols. So now let's take a look at printing the spaces. So if we look at this pattern, then for every row we have to print more than one space, and that has to be calculated by using this formula. So we will use a for loop for, and here it will be for spaces. So I will initialize this space variable with a value of 1. The condition will be how many space that we want to print. We can get that by using this formula, and that is total number of rows minus row number. So here the condition will be space less than or equal to total number of rows minus row number is available for us in this row variable. Okay, I'm gonna use the parenthesis here. Okay, and after that we will increment the value of this space variable. Okay, now this condition here, this will calculate the number of spaces that we have to print for a particular row. Okay, now here we will use the printf function and we will print a space. Okay, now we have written the code for printing the spaces. The next thing that we have to do is we have to write the code for printing the symbol. So now here again, if you look at this pattern, then the number of symbols printed for every row is more than 1, and it has to be calculated by using this formula. So we will use a for loop here for, and it will be symbol equal to 1, symbol less than or equal to. Now we have to write the formula to calculate the number of symbols printed for every row, and that is 2 multiplied by row number and minus 1. So here the formula will be 2 multiplied by row number is available for us in this row variable, and it will be -1 here. Okay, I have used the parenthesis to group this here. Okay, and after that we will increment the value of the symbol variable. So now here this condition will calculate the number of symbols that we have to print for a particular row, and we will print that here. So it will be printf statement, and here the symbol that I want to print is star. Okay, so now before running this program, let's take a look at this. And I have made a silly mistake, and that is I have not used the and symbol for this total row num variable when it is used in this scanf function. So we have to do that. Okay, now let's build and run this program. Enter the number of rows, 5, and now you guys can see this pattern is printed for 5 rows. Now let's close that. Let's build and run it again. This time I'm gonna enter 20 rows. Now you guys can see this pattern is printed for 20 rows. Now here, if you want, you can change the symbol that is been printed. For example, if you want, you can you can display the number 1 here. So let me quickly build and run this. 20, it will look something like this. And also what you can do is you can, if you want, you can replace that spaces with some other character. For example, if you want, you can add hash here. So let me build and run this. 20, it will look something like this. You can experiment with this code. So this is it, guys. This is how you guys can write a simple C program to print this pyramid shape pattern in C programming language. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you don't like it, then hit the dislike button. If you want to say something, then write that in the comment box. For watching more tutorials like this, do subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later in the next video.